So I wanted to highlight this story because it was both hilarious and a little alarming at the same time. Newt Gingrich was on Fox News the other day and he brought up George Soros, and it just all of a sudden became the most awkward interview I think I've ever seen in my life. Um, which is really weird because George Soros is often the boogeyman of the right, and for good reason. He's funded a lot of really bad things, and first of all, he's not American, so that's another thing. Having a billionaire who's not even American, plays such an active role in American politics, and who has such a crummy track record as George Soros does. And if you don't know much about George Soros, if you go back to episode 9 of my show Revved Up, I about halfway through I go into, I don't want to call it a deep dive, but about a probably 6-minute segment where I kind of break down a lot of the evil of George Soros. So if you don't have any background on really what George Soros has done, I would suggest you checking that out before watching this, just to give you a little bit of context for who he is. But we have this from the Daily Caller. Newt Gingrich says George Soros elected DAs responsible for unrest. And first of all, I like Newt Gingrich a lot. I'm from Georgia, for one. He was a Georgia representative, but also just what he did as Speaker of the House in the 90s. I think he did a fantastic job. But let's get into this. So, a Fox News panel went silent after former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich brought up George Soros during a Wednesday appearance on Fox News Outnumbered. Fox News is Outnumbered. Gingrich responded to the unrest in many major American cities that have destroyed business owned by minority-owned... Come on, guys, get yourself a copy editor here. So it says that businesses by minority-owned businesses, essentially. The number one problem in most all of these cities is George Soros-elected left-wing anti-police pro-criminal district attorneys who refuse to keep people locked up. So I'm not going to read. I'd rather just show you guys what he says, because if you haven't seen the interview yet, you should go ahead and see it now. Let me make sure my volume is up for you guys here.
Everybody, right? Speaker Gingrich, I know you have a final thought for us.
Yeah, look, the number one problem in almost all these cities is George Soros elected left-wing, anti-police, pro-criminal district attorneys who refuse to keep people locked up. Just yesterday, they put somebody back on the street who's wanted for 2 different murders in New York City. You cannot solve this problem, and both Harris and Biden have talked very proudly about what they call progressive district attorneys. Progressive district attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros' money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring George Soros into this.
I was going to say you get the last word, Speaker.
He paid for it. I mean, why can't we discuss the fact that millions of dollars he spent?
I agree with what was said. George Soros doesn't need to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. So it's verboten.
All right, we're good. Okay, we're going to move on.
I mean, how awkward was that? He's bringing up a legitimate point that a lot of these DAs were actually funded by George Soros, and these 2 women, who I don't know who the hell they are, just, first of all, who are you as just some woman on Fox News to tell the Speaker of the House what does and doesn't need to be part of the conversation? Very, very disrespectful on their part. But it was very eyebrow raising, because you would maybe expect that kind of reaction if it was CNN or MSNBC or something like that. But coming from Fox News, and this is one of the reasons why I don't really watch Fox News, is because even though they are a little bit, they lean right of center, they're an establishment media corporation just like the rest of them. And, it's almost like it's controlled opposition with Fox News. I mean, there are people on Fox News that I like a lot. I mean, of course, I like Tucker Carlson. I like Greg Gutfeld. Sean Hannity's, I like him, don't love him. it's just really interesting to see those women, they didn't even know how to respond. They were just, it was like they were completely taken aback. It was almost like they were personally offended by George Soros being mentioned, which doesn't make much sense at all. And, so let's go ahead and read a little bit more here. So this is kind of what they, just a play-by-play. So Gingrich previously had said that the Democratic Party is owned by people who are financed by George Soros earlier this month on Fox News morning show Fox and Friends. In that appearance, Gingrich also noted that several district attorneys in major American cities who have received Soros funds exhibit pro-criminal tendencies. And that's true. And, I'm going to have to cast a little bit of shade on Tim Pool right now. I watch a lot of Tim Pool. I like a lot of his content, but he has always talked about how he doesn't like how George Soros is made out to be the left-wing boogeyman, because there are billionaires all over that that put their money to their political interests. And while that is true, what I think it neglects is that they don't all use their money the same way, and that not every billionaire putting their money in politics is the exact same. You can't say, oh, well, because one billionaire puts it to the left and another one puts it to the right, it's a wash. It's not, because you also have to look at what they're doing with their money and what their true practice or true intentions really are. And if we take a look here, I already mentioned the segment that I did in episode 9 of Revved Up. But go ahead, let's take a look here at, this is from I'm not going to read the whole thing. There was just a couple little parts that I wanted to highlight here. And this is from the National Review. The truth about George Soros is damning enough. And we can see when we go down, where was it? Okay, it should have been highlighted. I had to restart my computer because I'm still having issues with my webcam. So in 2006, Soros said that the main obstacle to a stable and just world is the United States. Not Iran, not Russia, not China, not Islamic terrorist groups, not transnational crime, the United States. And then in 2010, he declared that China has a better functioning government than the United States. So he's not just some billionaire. See, he's not just an American billionaire putting his money to his political interests. He is actually not an American. He is a transnational criminal globalist. That's what he is. So him being a billionaire putting his money is not the same as the Koch brothers, putting their money into FreedomWorks, which was their foundation, which, and I don't even agree with everything that the Koch brothers were for. I mean, the Koch brothers were for open borders, because to them, they had a very libertarian view, and a lot of libertarians are for open borders because they think that, oh, well, you get the labor in there, you can get it cheap, it's better for the businesses. But no, I'm not about that. I'm not a big L libertarian that way. But at the end of the day, those were Americans making political contributions for their interests in America. But it looks like Soros, he is a foreign national putting tons of money into particular races to feed a anti-American agenda. And it's not just that he's putting political contributions into these races. He's putting money behind anarchic organizations like Antifa, like Black Lives Matter. And, I don't know if there was a smoking gun on this or not, but it's pretty widely considered that he was also the one funding the migrant caravans. Basically assaulting the American border with these migrant caravans that they were paying. There's a lot of good video evidence from those migrant caravans that it was all staged, that they were not actually walking up. I mean, you see a lot of these people wearing flip-flops. They were showered, clean-shaven. They did not look like they had been trudging through thousands of miles of Central America and Mexico to get here. And they had these wristbands on that were color-coded for different things. It looked like they had just gotten off a bus and started walking in a crowd for a mile or so for photo ops, and then they got back on the bus and were sent further up. So if he's funding things like that, that is actual criminal activity. He's funding criminal behavior. So that is a very, very different thing than an American billionaire funding their political interests. And so I'm going to have to call Tim Pool out on that, because he says it's one and the same, but it's absolutely not. He's dead wrong on that. So Let's go ahead and continue with this. From 2015 to 2017, Soros spent more than $8 million on district attorney races across the country. And that's another thing. He gets very specific about the cases that or about the races that he puts his money behind. You don't hear many foreign billionaires putting millions of dollars, putting their money behind district attorney races in cities and towns in America. That's very specific. You have to think that, well, what is the end goal of that? What is the end game? Do they know that these are regions where he's also going to be funding unrest? It seems like it's part of a concerted effort and a smaller piece of a bigger puzzle. So it is very, very different with George Soros. And he's not just a standard contributor. So in Philadelphia, Soros gave over $1.45 million to a super PAC in support of DA candidate Larry Krasner. FEC filings have also revealed that a political action committee financed by George Soros called Justice and Public Safety spent more than $100,000 in Portsmouth, Virginia district attorney races in less than 2 months. Portsmouth, Virginia? I've never even heard of that place. Why is he putting $100,000 into their local elections? Unless he has something bigger planned there, especially for a DA, that he's going to pick up the phone and say, "Let these people out. I got you your job. Let these people out." Of course, he's not going to do it. He's going to have his mouthpieces do it, his operatives. But yeah, this was truly, truly bizarre. How these women just completely locked up when Gingrich mentioned George Soros, and you kind of have to wonder, well. It's hard to make a whole lot of sense out of, other than the fact that, you get with a lot of the conspiracy theories, George Soros is in the center of a lot of conspiracy theories, and the mainstream media is just going ham on attacking right-wing conspiracy theories, and whether they're trying to keep themselves from being drugged through that conspiracy theorist label and that kind of thing. I think that's a weak excuse. I think that's a weak attempt to self-preservate. And I also think it's absolutely rude of them to call out Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, when they have him on the show and he is trying to get a point across. Now, they could say, I disagree with you. I don't think Soros really has anything to do with this. But to say that we don't need to bring Soros into this and then just going silent as if it was almost as if Newt Gingrich just farted on their TV show. I mean, it was it was really weird the way they just completely locked up. It was like seeing a robot shutting down. You say the key word and it shuts down. And that was George Soros, and they're done. Really, anyways, I just thought it was both comical and bizarre, and so I thought it should be highlighted. So anyways, guys, go ahead, give this video the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. Also, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. If you'd like to help get old Ram out of the poorhouse and maybe get me a new webcam that doesn't shut off in the middle of my recordings like it did with this one. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.